share ko lang yung screen ko.
Asa na laparoscopic daw?
Uy, ano uy, yawa.
Ate na ko laparoscopic
Dili na tayo usa di ba ka nang tissue sa puso na dili ala peroscopic. Na stress ko ang
Ayan, kita ko ana.
Yawa, stressful yung ginawang stressful ka.
Ay, ano na?
Or record.
Yeah.
Dangerous ka.
Ito to be stopped niya, nag-record.
Yeah.
Clear naman, sir.
Uy,
Ako
Pati
na
yung
pala
audio
ni
ko po.
Delmar.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
Shagit ako sa
So, good morning,
Si
everyone.
Harding
No,
ba?
Harding.
So I'll be talking, giving a lecture on colorectal and anus. So just like the previous lecturers, basic concepts will not be discussed. Very limited lang yung time natin. So I'll be giving emphasis on the common malignant diseases and some benign diseases. So my lecture will mainly be guidelines or algorithm based. So mostly from the NCCN, so here's my references. So mostly from NCCN guideline. Tapos nagpapasok lang ako sa guideline from ASCRS. I opted not to include Schwartz mainly because in terms of cancer treatment, medyo outdated na siya. So for the past 2 to 3 years, ang dami ng updates na nakita natin, especially for cancer. So I'll try my best to discuss those updates and to be able to understand and help you in your exam. Okay, so ito yung usual na tinatanong sa colon, rectum and anus, the benign and malignant. The highlighted ones, I'll be focusing on the highlighted ones.
Murderous.
Mahina. Okay ba? Parang mahina daw, sir.
Regard sa unsay.
Clear naman.
Clear naman, pero may konting volume issue siguro. Kaya mo bang taasan pa yung volume?
Wait lang, sir.
Siyempre, taas kayo yung lecture na. Bidungan man ang upat ka topic.
Mo na stress ko karon, hindi ko na ko ibitang bahala ka.
Yan ang video man nila.
Kamot nila. They're getting
Ito na
themselves
ata.
to be killed.
Yung ata pinakamalakas ko, sorry. Lakasan ko na lang yung voice ko, sir. Wait lang, sir.
Ayan, yan. Better na, Romsey.
Kung ganito ba, sir, malakas?
Actually, sobrang lakas na nga niyan. Yes, okay.
Ayan, so again, the highlighted ones, yun yung ifo-focus ko for my review. But you also need to look up on the other usual topics that will be commonly will be discussed or questioned during your exams. So let's start with the screening. So I hope you guys can take time to look at the NCCN guidelines. They have a very good algorithm for both screening, cancer screening, and yung mga genetic na mga diseases. So maganda yung kanilang algorithm and they will explain ano yung mga indications. For example, here in colorectal, you have the average and the increased risk. So basically for the average risk, lahat wala, no? No personal history, no negative history of no negative family history of advanced adenoma. So if you can see, the age wherein you need to start your screening is at 45 years old. And yung regular screening should run between 45 to 75 years old. So if the patient is more than 75, you need to individualize them. So usually itong bracket na to, kung wala silang previous colonoscopy or colorectal screening, this is the best time to do so. At least kahit isang beses for these patients, mainly because itong age bracket na to, para less than 10 years na ang kanilang life expectancy. For those younger than 45 years old, if they have presence of alarm symptoms such as rectal bleeding, IDA, abdominal pain or weight loss, or any symptoms that are associated with colorectal cancer, you need to do prompt evaluation na. So, colonoscopy, no? Rectal bleeding, wherein you treated for hemorrhoids but did not resolve, is also indicated to undergo evaluation. So regardless of the age, presence of alarm symptoms should warrant prompt evaluation. So for the positive family history, ang important dito is yung first degree relative. So a first degree relative with cancer, your screening should begin at 40 years old or 10 years before the earliest diagnosis of colorectal cancer. On the other hand, if you have a first-degree relative with an advanced adenoma, 40 years old pa rin yung start, but if earlier yung age of onset ng adenoma, yun yung susundin mo. So either 40 years old or at the age of onset of adenoma in the relative, whichever is the first. So for the second and third degree relatives, pasok siya sa average risk. So the screening starts at 45 years old. So here is a table showing you the different modalities, screening modalities, including their schedule, as well as the specificity and sensitivity. Another table comparing the pros and cons of each of the screening modalities. So now we go to colon cancer. So both colon cancer, medyo maraming mga dagdag. So I hope I'll try my best to help you understand yung mga bagong dagdag sa colon and rectal cancer guidelines. So first, if you will notice, they highly recommend doing your molecular analysis. That would be your MMR and MSI testing. So if you have a diagnosis of an invasive cancer, even for a polyp, either pedunculated or adenoma, you immediately send the specimen for MMR or MSI testing. The issue lang with this, minsan maliliit yung specimen natin for the MMR or MSI na hindi natin na-proceed sa molecular analysis mainly because wala nang tissues that is remaining for these testing. So ang MMR test for proteins, so these are stain based, so yung mga immunohistochemical stains. The MSI, however, is PRC based. So mas malaki yung mga tissues na kailangan. So if you're going to choose, lalo for konti lang yung specimen, you use the MMR testing. The concordance rate between the two is high, kaya pwedeng isa lang yung piliin if limited yung budget or limited yung specimen. So just an overview of malignant polyp. So you have a pedunculated and sessile. Okay. So for the pedunculated, we use the Hadget classification. This is your 4 levels for the Hadgets, and yung level 4 has the highest lymph node metastasis as high as 31%. Mataas siya. It almost reaches the level of stage 2, yung mga 17 to 25% na lymph node metastasis. And for the sessile polyp, you use the Kikuchi classification. The challenge lang with the Kikuchi classification is you need to get a sample of the muscularis propria because you need the reference point for you to be able to divide the submucosa into 3. So kung wala ka ng muscularis propria, may hirapan yung pathologist to divide the muscularis into an upper, middle, and a lower third. So issue yon because if you're going to do polypectomy, pag kumuha ka ng muscularis propria, mas mataas yung chance of perforation. So that's why Kitajima from Japan standardized pathologic evaluation of submucosal invasion using the depth of invasion. So yun yung by millimeters. So they noted that an SMI or submucosal invasion of less than 1 millimeter has almost 0% lymph node metastasis. But if it's more than 1, so that would be 1 to 2 millimeters or more than 2 millimeters, it can reach as high as 17%. Again, as high as your stage 2 na colorectal cancer. So, ang important dito, yung 1 millimeter na cutoff. So, review lang, potential candidates for endoscopic resection are those without features of deep SMI. So, these include superficial SMI and those with favorable histologic characteristics. So, en bloc endoscopic resection is mandatory for you to be able to determine the depth of your SMI and for you to have a single specimen, yung hindi fragmented, so that you'll be able to properly determine the status of the base. So if the tumor is less than 2 and below, you do endoscopic mucosal resection. If the tumor is more than 2, you do endoscopic submucosal dissection. So what are the features of deep submucosal invasion? So ito yung mga different classifications, the Paris and the Kudo type. So if meron ka nito on your endoscopic evaluation, you just get a biopsy, then you refer for surgical resection. So after having the specimen, you need to evaluate the histologic features. So I summarize those favorable and unfavorable. So for unfavorable, that would be grade 3 or 4 with angiolymphatic or lymphovascular invasion and a positive resection margin as well as tumor budding or yung high tier na tumor budding. That would mean 10 and above or 10 or more na tumor buds. So sa NCCN, they said that walang strict definition ng positive resection. It could be close to the tumor, it could be 1 millimeter, or it could be 2 millimeters away from the tumor. But ASERS guidelines that was released in 2022 stated that a positive margin is at least 1 millimeter from excision margin. So we usually follow this as for us to label a positive resection margin. In addition to the histologic features, we also need to determine kung how the specimen was collected, if it's fragmented. Hence, you cannot properly assess your margins. If it's Hajet 4 or if the SMI is at least 1 millimeter or above. These are all unfavorable characteristics. Then you proceed for colectomy. On the other hand, on the right side, if it's a single specimen, completely removed, you're able to determine the base of the specimen. It's a Hajet 1 to 3 classification for pedunculated and SMI of less than 1 millimeter for sessile polyp, you just observe. So going back, as you can see, for pedunculated polyp, you just observe. For the sessile polyp, merong or, either observe or you do colectomy. Previously, they noted that a sessile polyp offers a greater incidence of adverse outcomes. So yun yung residual disease, recurrent disease, mortality, hematogenous metastasis. But they found out that configuration itself is not a significant variable. So it's still the histopathologic features that are more important for you to determine if you just need to observe or you proceed with colectomy. So if you have grade 1 to 2 histology, negative margins, or no LVI, an endoscopic polypectomy is sufficient. So now we proceed with the workup for colon cancer. Laging issue yung kung kailan mo siya i-label as colon or rectum, especially for rectosigmoid tumors. So NCCN stated that if you need to differentiate between the two, you use the MRI to distinguish if it's a low-lying sigmoid tumor or an upper rectal tumor. So, yung addition, yung important na addition lang sa ating workup is the molecular testing. For non-metastatic, MMR or MSI testing is sufficient. For metastatic, you need to add a lot of molecular analysis that would include KRAS, NRAS, your BRAF, even your HER2. And sometimes they send the specimen to next generation sequencing panels. So ano yung important ng requesting for the MMR? So this is actually histologic test for determining the risk of patients to have Lynch syndrome. So the importance for testing or in colonoscopy-based biopsy is you're able to discuss with the patient with regards to the extent of the surgery. So it's either you proceed with a subtotal or a segmental resection. So kung segmental, their colonoscopic surveillance would be annual, 1 to 2 years na. No? Kasi may iwan kang colonic tissues, hence mas mataas yung risk nila of developing cancer if they have Lynch syndrome. Likewise, for those who have rectal cancer, they have other options for neoadjuvant therapy or even non-operative management. On the other hand, if it's you collected a specimen after a surgical resection, nawawala na yung decision making with regards to their risk of having a synchronous or metachronous colonic cancer. But ang maganda lang dito is mas malaki yung specimen, so you'll be able to get a good good specimen for your molecular analysis. So just an overview of the Lynch syndrome, you have family history for determining your risk of having Lynch syndrome. You also have your personal history. So the most common criteria that we use is the Amsterdam criteria and the revised Bethesda. Amsterdam criteria identifies potentially affected individuals. So yun yung use na Amsterdam. And yung use naman ng Bethesda is those who will benefit from additional workup with genetic testing. So if the patient is diagnosed to have a Lynch syndrome, so for colon cancer, you can either offer segmental or proceed now with extended colectomy that will be subtotal or even total colectomy. But if the event that they chose, the segmental, you need to do your colonoscopic surveillance at least every 1 to 2 years. For rectal cancer, it's either proctectomy or you do a total proctocolectomy. Okay. So now what is the importance of doing colonoscopy? So it is found out that there's a 30 to 50% risk of having synchronous adenomas and about 4% of having synchronous cancer. So yun yung importance, aside from locating, yun yung importance is to evaluate the entire colonic mucosa because of a high percentage of synchronous lesions. Now, in the event that you're able to diagnose a synchronous cancer, by guidelines, you can either do 2 segmental resections or subtotal colectomy. Both have similar outcomes. So, if you have an obstructing proximal cancer, kunyari distal ascending cancer, technically you don't need to examine the more proximal side, mainly because you're going to include it na in your surgical resection. So right hemi. So regardless kung anong area niya, hepatic flexure, distal ascending colon, hindi mo na kailangan makita yung cecum, mainly because isasama mo na siya. On the other hand, if you have an endoscopically obstructing distal colon cancer, wala kang way to evaluate your proximal colon. So the options would include CT colonography, an intraoperative colonoscopy, a postoperative colonoscopy, and sometimes they also offer PET CT scan. In some instances, if the tumor is really obstructing, causing compromise on your proximal colon, some colorectal surgeons will do an upfront subtotal colectomy to address the other side. Sometimes, another reason being hindi nyo nga na-evaluate yung proximal colon, so it's also acceptable, a viable option in doing subtotal colectomy for an obstructing distal colon cancer. So, sabi ko sa inyo before, it's important to determine the MMR or MSI status of the patient, maybe because for both colon and rectal cancer, they divided the treatment for those with proficient MMR and those with deficient MMR. Okay, so we'll start first with the proficient MMR. So same, walang change. If it's a resectable non-obstructing, you can do upfront resection. If it's resectable obstructing, there are a lot of options. You can either do upfront resection if the patient has a good surgical risk. You can do resection with diversion. You anastomose, then you divert. Or a Hartmann's procedure. Yung isa naman is the diversion first or stenting first. You upbuild the patient and then you do interval colectomy. Now, if you have a clinical T4B or a bulky nodal disease, they recommend you considering neoadjuvant therapy with FOLFOX or CAPOX. The reason being to increase your chances of getting an R0 resection. So kung masyadong bulky, a lot of structures or surrounding structures are invaded, the chances of having an R1 resection becomes high. So para mas tumaas yung better yung survival outcome ng patient, less yung local recurrence niya, they consider you giving a neoadjuvant therapy to shrink the tumor and eventually, or in the hope that you'll be able to get an R0 resection. So on the other hand, if it's a locally unresectable tumor, you can go straight with systemic therapy, or you do an RT. So the radiotherapy should be discussed with your radiation oncologist to determine if the tumor site is suitable to undergo radiation therapy. So for the adjuvant treatment for proficient MMR, so observation if the tumor, the T stage is in situ T1 or T2. If it's T3 without risk factors, you can still observe or you may consider giving chemotherapy. Now, if the T stage is T3 but with high-risk features, or if the T stage is T4, chemotherapy is indicated. So yung high-risk features will only matter for T3 na lesions. So what are the high-risk features? So the risk assessment is needed for you to determine if the patient should undergo adjuvant therapy, and this risk assessment helps you determine the risk of the patient for having local recurrence. So always remember you have two types of risk assessment, the clinical and the pathologic. For the clinical, even if okay yung pathologic features niya but you have a bowel obstruction or a localized perforation, patient is already labeled as high risk, as having high risk. On the other hand, the pathologic features are as follows. Ito na yung less than 12 lymph nodes, poorly differentiated tumors, lymphovascular peritoneal invasion, positive margins, and of course, your tumor budding na high. No? So kung bigay sa inyo 1 to 2 tumor buds, hindi yun kasama sa high risk. If binigay sa mga more than 10, that is considered a high tier tumor budding. So for stage 3, regardless, adjuvant therapy is indicated. So ang stage 3, automatic meron kang lymph node involvement. Yun. So, for the surgery, up to 12 weeks delay is acceptable. And it is not detrimental to disease-free survival. But of course, the earlier to perform your surgery, the better, no? So extent, margins, at least 5 to 7 centimeters both on the proximal and distal. And the lymph node is at least 12 lymph node. So now we go to your deficient MMR. Same lang siya with your proficient MMR. The difference here is for the neoadjuvant therapy, wherein immunotherapy is the preferred treatment over chemotherapy. Likewise, if it's locally unresectable, immunotherapy rin ang preferred. So now there are sometimes patients who are deficient in MMR but are not candidates for immunotherapy, mainly because they're allergic or pangit yung kanilang, they have a very bad side effect. Or siguro in our state, in our setting, in our healthcare setting, they don't have the resources to have immunotherapy treatment. Then you can, as recommended, you can treat them like the algorithm for proficient MMR. But suffice to say, basta the MMR, clinical P4D, we consider neoadjuvant therapy using immunotherapy. For those locally unresectable, preferred choice is immunotherapy rin. So, different ang adjuvant treatment for deficient MMR. So, for stage 1 to 2, regardless of the presence of risk factors, just observe. Okay? So, kung titignan nyo, wala dito yung mga risk factors na na-mention doon sa proficient or PMMR. But if we have, for stage 3, automatic chemotherapy. Now, ang chemotherapy, ang adjuvant treatment for DMMR is not immunotherapy. So, the immunotherapy will only be given in the neoadjuvant phase. For the adjuvant phase, it will always be your usual chemotherapy, either CAPOX or FOLFOX. Okay, so for stage 3, chemotherapy. For stage 0 to 2, just observation. For surveillance, stage 1, just colonoscopy. You do it 1 year after the surgery. And then if there's an advanced adenoma, you repeat it after 1 year. Otherwise, you repeat it in 3 years, then every 5 years. And for stage 2, 3, and 4, ito yung summarized na surveillance. Ang difference lang nila is here sa chest, sa CT scan, no? So, so for stage 4, mas frequent ang CT scan mo, parang almost quarterly for the first 2 years. And then, every 6 to 12 months for the next 3 years. So, technically, halos parehas lang sila, except for the CT scan. Okay, so, just in case you'll come across ctDNA, sorry, erase ko lang. Previously, na-mention siya as a emerging prognostic factor. There are a lot of studies na magandang pang surveillance. But in the recent version of the NCCN guidelines, they said that there's an insufficient evidence to recommend ctDNA as a routine surveillance tool outside of a clinical trial. Okay, just a brief overview on colonic emergencies. So for obstructing colon cancer with curable disease for left-sided, your options are stenting, diverting colostomy with interval colectomy, or an upfront oncologic segmental colectomy. For right-sided or transverse colon, you can do an upfront oncologic segmental colectomy or an initial stent decompression with subsequent interval colectomy. For those presenting with perforation, the tumoral perforation should need an oncologic segmental colectomy. So you may consider anastomosis only in selected patients. That would be patients with minimal contamination, healthy tissue quality, and clinical stability of the patient. Now, if the perforation happens in the uninvolved segment, usually on the proximal to the obstructing tumor, so for the obstructing tumor, you need to do oncologic segmental colectomy, and for the perforated segment, usually ito yung nasa right side ng cecum, you can either repair or resect with or without diversion of that perforated segment. So you always need to look at the status of the right side, especially if you have signs of bowel compromise. So pwede na siyang masama sa resection, yun yung sinasabi ko na subtotal colectomy, or you do localized treatment on the perforation without resection. You may just repair if maganda yung bowel wall quality, or you may do resection, or you may do repair with proximal diversion. For those presenting with lower GI bleed, ang important pa rin is to stabilize the patient. So, if massive bleeding, again, you need to localize where the bleeding is coming from. It's important that you undergo your preoperative localization. And then, if you're able to localize that the bleeding comes from the tumor, if the patient is stable, you can immediately do your resection. Otherwise, you do your conservative treatment as recommended by the lower GI bleeding guidelines. Okay, so I'm just going to touch a bit of the metastasis stage 4. So for proficient MMR, same pa rin yung alam natin na different approaches for stage 4 diseases. You have 3 types. The synchronous upfront resection, either synchronous or stage resection. The neoadjuvant therapy followed by a synchronous resection or stage resection depending on the status of the tumor or the tumor and the metastatic lesions. So etong point na to, usually they offer or recommend the liver first approach. And the other is a stage treatment. You do first your colectomy followed by your chemotherapy. So I'm going to leave this clinical vignettes, so you just read it on your time, on your own. These are just samples on the possible scenarios on each of the 3 approaches for stage 4 colon cancer. Okay, so ito yung upfront resection. And this one is a candidate for neoadjuvant chemotherapy followed by a synchronous or a stage resection for the metastatic lesions in the primary tumor. And lastly, if there's an impending obstruction or a perforation, upfront resection first, followed by your chemotherapy. So for deficient MMR, technically same lang siya. It's just that again, if it's a deficient MMR, one of the important aspects of the treatment should be immunotherapy. So if the tumor is a good candidate for upfront resection, you can offer synchronous or stage resection. Otherwise, if neoadjuvant therapy is needed, an immunotherapy is always preferred. So now we go to rectal cancer. So just to clear, yung important kasi sa rectal cancer is the location of the tumor. Yun yung unang lagi nating inaalam sa rectal cancer. And you have 2 schools of thought. Sa US side, yung 0 to 7, and sa Europe, yung 0 to 5. So far, ang ginagamit natin is yung 0 to 5. Okay? So sa exam, 0 to 5 pa rin ang ating cut-off. Now, if you're going to be strict about it, NCCN again released doon sa last part ng guidelines nila. They recommend using MRI to determine if it's rectum or a colon tumor. So, any tumor that is located below an imaginary line between the sacral promontory to the top of the pubic symphysis is labeled as a rectal tumor. So, an upper rectum, if it's above the peritoneal reflection, mid rectum, if it's at the level of the peritoneal reflection, and low rectum, if it's below the peritoneal reflection. So, for the initial workup for the polyp, same as colon cancer. Now, the difference is, if you have a sessile polyp that is with the favorable histologic features, single specimen, complete removal, you still need to do your endoscopic ultrasound or MRI. On the other hand, if the specimen that was biopsied is fragmented with unfavorable histologic features, you proceed with your usual workup for rectal cancer, which includes your MRI and your EUS. So the usual question is, what is the difference between the two? And which do we prefer in using, if it's EUS or MRI? So in the ASER guidelines in 2020, they released that they preferred using MRI, rectal cancer protocol MRI over EUS. EUS only if you need to differentiate between early T stages. So that's T1 versus T2, or if MRI is contraindicated. So just difference, yung na-offer na MRI over EUS is able to determine the depth of penetration, presence of locoregional nodal metastasis, and most important is determining the status of your circumferential resection margin. So a positive CRM is within 1 millimeter. And of course, MRI can also determine the high-risk features of the primary tumor, that is a T4 status, extramural vascular invasion or yung EMVI, again, CRM positivity, and if the extramural tumor depth is at least 5 millimeters. So the endorectal ultrasound is only useful if you want to differentiate an early T stages, that is T1 to T2, and if the MRI is contraindicated. So the disadvantages are as follows. It is an operator dependent. There's limited accuracy in assessing bulky or locally advanced lesions. If the patient has discomfort, and if you are unable to pass the transducer into the stenotic lesion, so hindi nyo ma-evaluate yung buong length ng tumor. So, just like yung na-discuss kanina ni Dr. Erlina, review ko lang ulit, you have 5 layers in the endorectal ultrasound. Ang important is yung layer 3, 4, and 5. So the T1 corresponds to your layer 3, T2 corresponds to your layer 4, and T3 corresponds to your layer 5. So example, you can see intact yung layer 3. So ibig sabihin walang invasion ng submucosa. So this is labeled as an in situ tumor, or possibly just a polyp. On the right side, you can see scalloping of your mesorectum. This is labeled as T3. Okay, so now we proceed with the treatment for the polyps. So usually, ang question dito is, this tumor a good candidate for transanal local excision or an upfront transabdominal resection? So what are the criteria for patients that can undergo transanal localization. So don't forget the following. Ito yung usual na tatanungin sa exam. So less than 30% of the circumference, less than 3 cm yung size, mobile and fixed, T1, and no unfavorable histologic features sa inyong well to moderately differentiated, no lymphovascular invasion or no peritoneal invasion, and of course, no evidence of lymphadenopathies on your imaging. And lastly, you should be able to get a full thickness excision kung baka kaya nyo siyang gawin. And yung important for transanal localization is the location from your anal verge, which is 8 centimeters. So what are your margins? For a circumferential margin, it should be 1 centimeter. And for the depth, reaching down to the perirectal fat with a minimum of 2 millimeter deep margin. So when you do your transanal excision, dapat makikita nyo yung perirectal fat or mesorectal fat for you to be able to have a grossly good specimen. Now, if the tumor has all the good or favorable factors, but the lesion is located beyond or proximal or more than 8 centimeters from the anal verge, technically, these are your two options, your TEM and your TAVIs. But this requires expertise, this requires proper instrumentation. So, yun yung limiting factors sa ating healthcare setup. So, at this point, you can actually offer doing an upfront resection. So, for T1, upfront resection is still a good or a viable option. Yun lang, when you're going to do an upfront resection, ang kapalit nun is yung loss ng rectum, hence your risk of having low anterior resection syndrome. Okay? So now we go to the pathologic features of your transanal localization. These are your favorable histologic features. So if you have the following, just observe. Doc Mark, may nag-raise ng hand. Sagutin ko ba or after na lang? After na, sir.
Kanina pa ata yan, Romsey.
Kanina pa, sir.
Mm-mm.
Okay, sir. Sige, sir. Okay, so to continue, if you have the following features naman unfavorable, included dito yung tumor budding. So, hindi nila explicitly sinabi sa NCCN, but I would assume yung high tear, again, na tumor budding, you proceed with your resection. So, this would mean either anterior resection or low anterior resection. So, for the workup for rectal cancer, technically same with the colon. Yung naka-highlight ang mga additional. So you have the proctoscopy because you need to determine the exact distance from the anal verge. Of course, your MRI, your ultrasound, if MRI is contraindicated. Ang important is referral to a stoma therapist, multidisciplinary team evaluation, and fertility risk discussion. And of course, don't forget your molecular testing. So this is just a summary of all the preoperative workup for rectal cancer. So at this point, hindi pa natin gagamitin yung MSI or MMR testing. So for T1, again, to determine if T1 or T2, best to use MRI, otherwise endorectal ultrasound. For T1, pinatinan nila to non-surgical or surgical candidate. So for non-surgical candidate, you can already offer endoscopic mucosal dissection. Likewise, for surgical candidate, you can still offer ESD, but you can already offer transanal local excision if appropriate. So if ever you proceeded with transanal local excision, if the final histopath shows a T1 lesion without high-risk features, you just observe. But if the histopath shows high-risk features for T1, or the T is actually a T2 lesion, so ito yung high-risk features, positive margins, LVI, poorly differentiated, or SM3 invasion or more than 1 millimeter submucosal invasion, the preferred treatment would be resection. But if poor surgical risk or patient is very adamant in doing surgical resection, you can offer chemo-RT, and the response will be, the next treatment will be dependent on the tumoral response. So if no disease, you can just continue observation, or you can consider completing your treatment with adjuvant therapy, or if there's evidence of disease, again, resection. So, next, ito yung medyo tricky. So, sabi nila, for a T3 na low-risk tumor pero high rectal, you can do upfront resection, and this is already an appropriate treatment for this specific subset of tumor. So, if you're going to look sa taas, so dito, ang sabi, surveillance. Pero dito sa taas, same naman, but they proceeded to adjuvant. So, they did not explicitly state sa guidelines, but I would assume that what they are saying is, you treat this as a colon, no? Hindi kasi nila, I never saw a statement about an upper rectum that you consider it as a colon, colonic in origin, or colonic yung behavior niya, no? Parang never ako nakakita sa rectal cancer guidelines ng NCCN. If it's an upper rectum, it's the behavior is like colon, you treat it as a colon. Pero from this slide, I would assume that mukhang sinasabi na nila na parang colon, because after resecting at an upper rectum T3 N0 low risk, you just treat it as a colon. So this is a T3 early stage na T stage 2 na low risk. Kung maalala niyo yung algorithm from the previous part, you just observe. On the other hand, if it's a T1, T2, but no lymph nodes, you proceed with resection. So after proceeding with resection, if the final histopath is still T1, T2, you observe. If the final histopath is T3, you proceed with total neoadjuvant therapy. I will expand this later. And ito yung sinasabi kanina, if it is an upper rectal tumor, low risk, well to moderately well differentiated, the invasion into the mesorectum is less than 2 millimeters, there is no lymphovascular invasion, you just observe. Now for T4, no lymph nodes, or any T stage with lymph nodes, totally adjuvant treatment. Pero there's a specific subset below na you can offer only adjuvant chemotherapy if the final histopath shows T1 to 3 with N1 lymph node only. Okay, so now, if there is a lymph node, positive yung lymph node mo, pero regardless kung anong location niya, high, mid, or low, dito na papasok yung molecular analysis. Okay, dito nagagamitin yung information on your molecular analysis. So first, with your PMMR, total neoadjuvant na yung standard of care. Oops, sorry. So total neoadjuvant na yung standard of care. Okay? So there are three types, there are three approaches for total adjuvant. First is the RT, followed by your consolidation chemotherapy, followed by your restaging, which usually done 4 weeks after the chemotherapy. The second approach is chemotherapy first, or induction chemotherapy, followed by your RT. Then you restage 8 weeks after the RT. So the restaging or the response assessment will be dependent on what treatment you gave last. So ang huli mong binigay is chemotherapy 4 weeks. Kung ang huli mong binigay is RT 8 weeks. Now, pinaka-recently, so anyway, just comparison of the three trials for totally adjuvant, the OPRA, PRODIGE, and the RAPIDO. So this is just a table on a summary on their outcomes. But recently, Rapido came up with their long-term analysis showing a high local recurrence rate. So that's why hindi na masyadong pinupush ang short course RT as part of your TNT. But it is still a viable option. Yun lang, there's a risk of higher local recurrence rate. Ngayon, in the latest rectal guidelines, actually since last year, they already included the PROSPECT trial. The importance of this trial is avoidance of radiation therapy. But this is only applicable for patients that are non-T4 who are candidate for sphincter saving surgeries. So this would mean an upper and mid rectum. So hindi pasok dito ang low rectum, especially those or in your initial imaging shows involvement of your sphincters or involvement of your levators. So if the tumor regression by imaging, so important dito, kailangan magawa mo talaga yung pre and post imaging. And it should be read by at least the same radiologist para walang problem in terms sa reader. Diba? May issues. Minsan iba-iba yung kanilang way in interpreting the imaging. So if the tumor regression is more than 20%, you proceed with surgery. Ibig sabihin maganda yung tumor response nila. However, if the tumor has less than or equal to 20% regression, ibig sabihin partial or halos walang response sa chemotherapy, you proceed with RT. So another important that they included in the guidelines is the complete clinical response. Okay, so for you to label it as a complete clinical response means there is no evidence of residual disease on DRE, rectal MRI, and direct endoscopic evaluation. So sa NCCN, there's a page there solely about clinical response. You really need to read on it. Meron silang criteria doon. So this is actually a non-operative management for rectal cancer, but it should be carefully discussed with your patient, because you still need to monitor the patient for the first 2 years because of the risk of recurrence, and you need to be able to detect the recurrent disease at an early time so that you can be able to do your salvage therapy with a good outcome. So ito yung surveillance for following non-operative treatment. Okay? So important dito lahat to magawa, otherwise you might miss the recurring or the regrowing tumor. Tapos pag bumalik yung patient, hindi na siya operable. So para bang na-miss nyo na yung window of opportunity to treat the patient. So now for the deficient MMR, again, kung deficient MMR, immunotherapy ang unang treatment. Again, if there's a complete clinical response, you follow the surveillance. If there's persistent disease after 6 months of therapy, you proceed with your RT, then again, response assessment. So for surveillance, for those who underwent polypectomy only, You do your physical examination with proctoscopy and then colonoscopy. For those who underwent transanal local excision, procto with imaging, either ultrasound or MRI, and of course, colonoscopy. For those stage 1, just colonoscopy. And for stage 2 to 4, here is your table. Just an overview of the surgical approaches to the three levels of your rectal cancer. Upper rectum is AR or anterior resection with wide mesorectal excision or tumor-specific mesorectal excision with at least 5 cm distal margin. For mid to low, the preferred treatment is LAR, low anterior resection with TME. The distal margin, acceptable distal margin is 2 cm. But if the tumor is almost at the level or below the mesorectal margin, the acceptable margin is 1 centimeter. So, the histopath showing a positive CRM means any lesion that is 1 millimeter from your mesorectal fascia. It could be a tumor, a lymph node, or a tumor deposit, or if there's inappropriate dissection along the plane of mesorectum. So for low rectum, APR with TME. So APR is mandatory if you have direct involvement of the sphincters or levators. There's loss of integrity of the intersphincteric plane, and doing a margin negative resection would result in unacceptable sphincter function. Then you immediately you do APR. So intraoperative maneuvers for anastomotic integrity are as follows: Dick test, endoscopic evaluation, microperfusion, and if it turns out positive, here are your options for intraoperative correction. Lymph node dissection, it is not, hindi siya ina-advocate ng NCCN as opposed to the Japanese guidelines wherein lymph node dissection is part of their surgical approach. So for the knowledge of everyone, a cutoff of lymph node pre-neoadjuvant is 7 millimeters for you to proceed with resection. For lymph node after the neoadjuvant therapy is 5 millimeters. So, next topic is yung rectal prolapse. So again, full thickness prolapse is protrusion through the anus. Internal prolapse, hindi siya lumalabas sa rectal wall. And then mucosal prolapse, usually associated with hemorrhoidal disease. So these are just the following types of your rectal prolapse. Still, the best option is your abdominal approach, but for high-risk patients, perineal approach is sufficient. So this is just a table comparing your initial procedure. If there's recurrence of your rectal prolapse, here are your redo procedures. So what are the non-operative management? Technically, it cannot be corrected non-operatively. So rectal prolapse will always be a surgical disease. But you can offer some treatment to palliate them medically. So for constipation, fiber and stool softeners, to help reduce, to assist in reduction of the prolapse, you may use stable sugar. Operative management, rectopexy is a key component of abdominal approach. Sigmoid resection should be performed if you have a preoperative constipation. And if you're going to divide your lateral stalks, it may worsen post-operative constipation, but it has notable decrease in recurrence rate. So ito yung different transabdominal repair and their formal names. Ripstein repair is the anterior rectopexy. So you mobilize the posterior rectum and you fix your mesh on the anterior rectal wall. The Wells procedure is the posterior sling rectopexy. You mobilize the posterior rectal wall, and then you place the mesh or the sponge on the lateral and the posterior aspect of the rectum. So yung ripstine, nasa anterior yung mesh fixating to your sacral promontory. The wells, ang mesh nakafix sa lateral and posterior wall, fixing it to the sacral promontory. Original wells uses the sponge, modified wells uses the Prolene mesh or biological mesh. The HOR, this is actually the recommended approach for rectal prolapse. You can do it open, mas madalas as a laparoscopic approach. So this is a ventral mesh rectopexy. You just mobilize the anterior rectal wall and then you fixate your mesh on the anterior rectal wall to the sacral promontory. The Orloid procedure, same approach, but this time you add a posterior rectal mobilization. So for the perineal repair, the Delorme procedure is for patients with short, full thickness rectal prolapse that is less than 5 centimeters. And for the Altemeyer, it is a perineal rectosigmoidectomy, so this is a resection. Yung Delorme, you only dissect the mucosa. The Altemeyer, you resect full thickness. Now, if you have a concomitant levator diastasis, you do a levatorplasty. So parang sisikipan mo lang yung levators. So now for fistula in ano, so ito yung usual ang mga tinatanong. Yung classification, you just memorize the simple, submucosal or subcutaneous fistula, intersphincteric fistula, low transsphincteric fistula. Yung wala dyan, complex. Ang important is this one. Any anterior fistula in women is automatically labeled as a complex. Mainly because masyadong maliit ang recto-vaginal septum. So there's mataas lagi yung chance that there could be an underlying vaginal opening or a rectovaginal fistula. So we'll be using the Parkes classification to determine the different, ito yung simplest, to determine the different options. So the submucosal does not involve any sphincter, just fistulotomy. For intersphincteric, it's just courses through the internal sphincter. Fistulotomy ang treatment option. For the transsphincteric, so first review natin external anal sphincters. You have historically subcutaneous, superficial, and deep. Yan. So for low, the low and the high is dependent on the height of your external anal sphincter. So low is less than 1/3 of the height of the external sphincter or less than 30% of the height of the external sphincter. On the other hand, yung high transsphincteric is more than 1/3 or more than 30% of the height of external sphincter, external anal sphincter. So the options, if it's a low transsphincteric, fistulotomy will suffice. If it's a high transsphincteric, you need to perform your sphincter preserving procedures as dictated in the picture. So next, suprasphincteric. It courses into the intersphincteric space, then goes on top of the puborectalis muscle, exiting to your skin. So again, your options will be sphincter saving procedures. So for the extrasphincteric fistula, there is an internal opening away or outside of the sphincter complex. Again, this is a complex sphincter. Treatment option should be sphincter saving procedure. So ito lang yung summary ng lahat ng discuss ko sa taas. Okay. So I will just discuss on the anal cancer because sometimes natatanong din siya sa exam. So, an important is yung anatomy. Anal canal lesions are those from the mucosa wherein if you track your buttocks to visualize your anal orifice, wala kang nakikita. Pero if you're able to see lesions when you gently track your buttocks, usually that is labeled as perianal lesions as long as it is within 5 cm from the anal orifice. It is labeled as skin lesion if the tumor is more than 5 cm from your anal orifice. So anal canal, any tumor that is located within the functional anal canal, so this is your superior and your inferior border. So this guideline will only cover squamous cell carcinoma. If the biopsy is adenocarcinoma, you follow rectal cancer guidelines. If the biopsy is melanoma, you follow melanoma guidelines. So these are the following workup for anal cancer. So kung papansinin nyo, walang colonoscopy, mainly because it is not indicated because there is no association between anal squamous cell cancer and colonic malignancies. It will only be indicated if the patient is already for screening for colorectal cancer, if the patient has other symptoms that needed to be investigated, and if the biopsy is a Paget's disease of the anus, mainly because it has an underlying adenocarcinoma. So for anal cancer, again, MRI is important to determine your tumor depth, sphincter involvement, and the perirectal lymph node involvement. So if this is an anal cancer, the treatment will be your Nigro protocol. So hindi nila sasabihin yung Nigro protocol, ang sasabihin nila yung components ng Nigro protocol. So now we go to perianal cancer. So anything within the 5 cm radius, same lang din as anal canal. So important dito you determine the T stage because it will determine if you will do an upfront resection or local excision or you proceed with your chemoradiation therapy. So local excision with 1 cm margin should be performed for patients with T1 lesions, well or moderately differentiated tumors, and select T2 lesions without sphincter involvement. And the tumor should be clearly separated from the anal canal. You should achieve a negative margin without compromise of your sphincter functions, and of course, there should be no evidence of nodal involvement. Otherwise, you proceed with your chemoradiation therapy. Yung T1, kung poorly differentiated siya, automatic chemoradiation siya. So for the surveillance, 8 to 12 weeks ang surveillance mo, you need to do your DRE and anoscopy. So that's your initial surveillance or follow-up for your squamous cell carcinoma. So kung may dumating sa inyo 4 weeks pa lang, you need additional 4 to 8 weeks pa. So total of 8 to 12 weeks. So if there's complete remission, you proceed with your surveillance. Ito yung summary table ng surveillance natin. Now, if hindi siya completely nawala, you need to label if it's persistent or progressive disease. So persistent meaning hindi siya nag-progress. Okay, so same lang itsura niya. So initial, you evaluate in 4 weeks. If nagre-regress or no progression, you continue observation at intervals of 3 months. The total will be at 6 months. Okay? So they noted that the tumor continues and slowly regress up to 26 weeks from the start of treatment. On the other hand, if it's a progressive disease, you always need to do biopsy. So routine biopsy for residual or shrinking lesions is not indicated until the 6th month. Pero kung persistent, andyan, hindi nagbabago, or slowly lumalala, you need to do your biopsy. Or if nawala, pero after a few weeks, biglang bumalik, or nagre-regrow, or lumalaki, you need to do biopsy because you need to determine if this is still a squamous carcinoma or other cancer types na. So you need to restage with the following options. So if the tumor is locally recurrent, you proceed with your salvage surgery with APR and groin dissection if the lymph nodes are positive. Contraindication for APR as follows: poor performance status, incurable distant mets, or involvement of your levators or nerve root invasion. Doc Mark, okay lang? Last ko naman na.
Yes, Romsey, go ahead.
Okay, sir. So, just a brief overview of obstruction. Usually, tinatanong din to. So, for right-sided colonic obstruction, you consider right hemicolectomy. You can opt for primary anastomosis if the caliber of the ileum is reasonable and the patient is doing well throughout the course, pre-op and intra-op. On the other hand, end ileostomy with mucous fistula if the ileum is very dilated or edematous. Other options, especially kung hindi healthy yung patient, toxic intraoperatively, you leave the closed distal colonic segment in the abdomen, but you need to be sure that there is no synchronous lesions in the distal part of the colon, no palpable lesions, because you might end up having a closed loop obstruction or eventual blowout of the stump. So, pwede nyo gawin to if you have a preoperative colonoscopy. Another is creation of a formal contralateral abdomen. So, usually, itong nauna na end ileostomy with mucous fistula, usually magkasama sila sa isang stoma. Pero kung kunyari, you need extensive dissection para lang mapagsama sila, siguro better option is to leave it on the other side. Sa contralateral side yung mucous fistula, nasa kabilang side yung end ileostomy. Or another option is after ileocolic anastomosis, you do a proximal diverting ileostomy. So if there is perforation, still you need to do oncologic resection. You can do anastomosis or you can do an end ileostomy. So the safest approach will always be an end ileostomy because in patients presenting with perforation, the anastomotic leak is as high as 3 to 15%. So for left-sided colonic obstruction, we have non-resectional management with reverse loop colostomy formation, meaning maglalagay kayo ng stoma proximal to the obstruction, or you may opt to do endoluminal stenting, both of which are a bridge to your formal resection. You're able to upbuild your patient and eventually perform your resection with good outcomes. Ang maganda lang sa endoluminal stenting is you don't have a stoma preoperatively and you can prepare the bowels and the patient properly, and eventually you can perform oncologic resection with primary anastomosis. So always, if you're going to opt for diversion or stenting, you always need to double check the status of your proximal colon. Baka kasi naglalagay kayo ng stent or naglalagay kayo ng stoma sa transverse without assessing your proximal colon, end up pangit na pala yung status, so pwede pa rin kayong magkaroon ng post-op complications. So for the resectional surgery or management, oncologic resection should always be your target. So the usual is the Hartmann's resection or subtotal colectomy, especially if there's evidence of proximal colonic ischemia. So the question is when to anastomose. You need to consider the condition of your bowel and the status of your patient. So what are our options? So primary anastomosis with or without diversion, or primary anastomosis with proximal fecal diversion and intraoperative colonic lavage. So these two are viable options for colonic obstruction. So now for perforation, again, oncologic resection. You may consider total abdominal colectomy again if you have a proximal colonic perforation away from the site of the tumor, or there is concern for colonic viability on the proximal side. So for segmental versus total colectomy or extended colectomy, mga extended colectomy natin is yung subtotal colectomy or total colectomy. So this is a preferred approach for patients presenting with proximal colonic ischemia, cecal serosal tearing not amenable to primary repair, or presence of synchronous colonic lesion on the proximal colon. So for the obstructing rectal cancer, there are three important factors that you need to determine. First, clinical. So complaints of the following symptoms are signs of impending obstruction. Endoscopic assessment. If you are unable to pass the endoscope past the primary lesion, this is an obvious indicator of pending obstruction. And of course, the radiologic assessment or in fecal loading, this is a subtle Heibinger of impending obstruction even in the absence of colonic dilatation. Presence of any of these would mean there's a possible impending obstruction. Hence, you need to manage this before proceeding with your rectal cancer management. So there are two options, loop colostomy or loop ileostomy. Ang problem lang sa loop colostomy, kung mali yung placement mo, you might compromise future elective restorative procedures by damaging the marginal blood supply of the left colon. Dun sa loop ileostomy naman, ang magiging kalaban mo is post-operative dehydration or closed loop obstruction if the ileocecal valve is competent. So makikita nyo yun sa preoperative imaging if you have an obstructing rectal cancer, dilated lahat ng colon pero yung small bowel mo is collapsed, or yun yung competent ang ileocecal valve. Pero kung dilated yung colon, tas dilated din yung small bowel, meaning incompetent yung ileocecal valve. So, stent as opposed to colon, medyo may issue in using stent for rectal cancer, mainly because you need at least 5 cm margin. Kailangan at least 5 cm yung layo ng stent from the distal margin of your tumor. And most of the time, umaabot na siya sa inner rectal ring. So stents that are located at the inner rectal ring will cause severe discomfort to the patient, and sometimes there is a risk of stent migration or entenesmus. Kaya hindi masyadong nire-recommend ang stent placement, SEMS or stent placement in the extraperitoneal rectal tumor. So issues for stoma creation, again, misplaced stoma can interfere with future reconstructive options. So kapag nalagay mo siya sa distal transverse or mid or proximal loop descending colon, there's a possibility na may injure mo yung marginal arteries. So pwede mo siyang ma-devascularize. Okay? So if you're going to choose a colostomy, the best segment that you should use is either the mid or proximal sigmoid colon if redundant, or your proximal transverse colon just to the right of the MCA. But you can also use loop ileostomy. Actually, the ASCRS guidelines recommended loop ileostomy over colostomy, mainly because it's an easier option to create. Easier yung segment na mailabas mo, exteriorize mo yung segment. It also has the least influence on the next operation. But you need to consider again yung closed loop obstruction physiology, especially if the ileocecal valve is competent. and of course the risk of dehydration, especially kung mag-undergo siya ng chemotherapy or especially for elderly patients. I think yun lang po yung last slide ko, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Romsey. There are two questions in the Q&A. The first is from Dr. Paziwagan.
In a patient who had frozen pelvis for sigmoid mass, initially underwent diversion first and underwent chemotherapy only, and on repeat colonoscopy, tubular adenoma was noted 18 cm from anal verge. What is more prudent to request for resectability? Well, tubular adenoma kasi, you need to make sure that it's really a tubular adenoma. O, ang tubular adenoma technically is still a benign. So, polypectomy is sufficient for a tubular adenoma with proper colonoscopic evaluation thereafter. So, kung in question na is there a role for repeat colonoscopy after? Yes, there will always be a role for repeat colonoscopy for tubular adenoma. So you need to evaluate kasi kung kamusta yung area na pinagtanggalan ng polyp, kung may recurrence. And of course, yung surveillance in the next 3 or 5 years, depende, no? Sa pelvic MRI or CT scan with triple contrast, depende kasi kung ano yung frozen pelvis. So if it's below your within your pelvic cavity, I think the best option will be your pelvic MRI because there are a lot of structures there. You need to check kung yung invasion niya sa mga sacrum, pelvic side walls, your bladder or your prostate, uterus and vagina. All of these structures are well seen in MRI as opposed to CT scan na hindi masyadong maganda ang images for pelvic cavity. So kung above the pelvic cavity yung sinasabi nyo na sigmoid mass, okay na yung CT scan with triple contrast. Otherwise, if it's in the pelvic cavity, better to do an MRI. Second question, are there any instance we give neoadjuvant chemo-RT for stage 1 rectal cancer? If it's a purely stage 1, that would mean T1, T2 lesions. Technically, wala. Because kapag nakuha niyo ng maayos, if you're able to evaluate the tumor properly, and you're able to perform your surgery properly, tapos final histopath still says that's a stage 1 tumor, just observation, no? So, if you're going to look at the ESMO guidelines, kahit na may lymph node sila, ang always pinaka-important sa kanila is a good surgical procedure, good surgical technique. So, if you are sure, 100% sure, hindi pwedeng 99%, if you're 100% sure that you can perform your TME properly, the chance of local recurrence can be as low as 10 to 15%. Sobrang baba, no? So kaya yung stage 1 tumors, T1, T2, if you're able to properly preoperatively evaluate them and you are able to properly do your TME, then no more adjuvant therapy is needed, surveillance na lang. For
Okay.
patients, isa pa sir? May isa pa?
I think that's the last question.
Okay. For patients with sigmoid adenocarcinoma non-obstructing and proximal tubulovidus adenoma, should you do sigmoidectomy, polypectomy, or total colectomy? Okay, so una, gaano karami ba yung tubulovidus adenoma? If it's just 1 or 2, and if it's within the line of resection, then you can include it. Otherwise, if nakita mo siya during your endoscopic or colonoscopic evaluation, nakuha siya, tubulobilus adenoma, complete resection, good margins, then you don't need to include it in your resection. So, kumbaga, hindi mo na kailangan mag-total colectomy. So, you will consider total colectomy if, again, deficient MMR siya, pasok siya for Lynch syndrome, or if pasok siya for polyposis syndrome. Okay, yung mga more than 10 polyps, pasok siya sa attenuated, or pasok siya sa familial adenomatous polyposis. Otherwise, if just 1 or 2 adenoma na nakuha naman completely with polypectomy, then just focus on your sigmoid adenocarcinoma.
Okay, thank you very much. So, I think that calls it a day now. Thank you very much to our two speakers, Dr. Romsey Cabantang and Dr. Emo, for those wonderful lectures. So, I think Dr. Billy Uy will be giving copies of the lectures at some point, ano? So, again, thank you everyone. Thank you for attending. And you have one more session next week, no? Okay, happy Sunday to everyone.
Thank you po.